Welcome back. I'm going to do the first assemble tutorial, top-down design method of assembly. An assembly is a bunch of components that are associated with each other via joints. That is, they're connected with joints. So there's two kinds of joints. There's as-built joints and then regular joints. And the difference between these two, I think it has something to do with whether you're using parametric design or direct design. And as-built joints have, one of them is grounded, so that'll, I guess, be the component that doesn't move, and then all the other joints are connect items to that, eventually to that grounded component. And then there's regular joints, and these allow you to, they also connect components, but they allow you to move components around while you're doing that. So I'll just do this and hope it's helpful. So let me move this instructions off to the side here. And I've got Fusion going. So I'm not going to follow the steps, the order of the tutorial exactly, but I'll do everything that's in there. So the first thing it's good to check is that your design port orientation, your XYZ orientation is correct. Now the tutorial doesn't say which orientation they're using, but it appears to be this Y up. And you can check that by clicking on your name and then preferences. Little dialog comes up and you can check here under default modeling orientation that you have Y up. All right, that's that. The other thing to check is go to your browser and see that you have units. All right, so let's see. So the first thing to do is create a sketch. So you click Create Sketch. They want you to click this blue, red, or XZ plane. This brings you straight down into a top-down view. Click Create Rectangle, 2-point rectangle. The first point's at the origin, and then drag up here. And then the dimensions aren't important, but I think it's 50 by 120. And that's that thing. So yeah, so click just somewhere on the canvas to finish the rectangle command. Okay, then go back to create, and here you need to draw a line. The tutorial says to draw a rectangle, but I can't get that to work, so you need to draw a line as far as I can tell. So click line and then come down in here and make sure you're snapping on the line. Make sure you get the snap with a little, what looks like an hourglass in it. Click that and then come up and then get a perpendicular snap. By, if you hold it in just the right spot, you get the perpendicular snap. Click that. Okay, now you need to add a dimension. So you go back to create, sketch dimension, click this bottom corners point and then this point right there, and then move the mouse down and click there, and once again, I think the dimension's 40, although it's not important. Okay, then center diameter circle, just somewhere, anywhere, 40. Then you need to add a dimension. Go back to the sketch dimension. Okay, now click the bottom point first. That is a point on this bottom line. Then click the center of the circle. And then depending on where you hold your mouse, you'll get a, like here you get a vertical dimension, here you get a, I don't even know what that is, and then here you get a horizontal dimension. That, I have no idea what the heck is going on there. Closest, whatever. Anyway, you want this, and you want 25. And then one other thing is that they want you to initially start with, so you got to click on the canvas to finish the dimension. Then I'm trying to move this circle, but I can't seem to move it. Okay, I had to press escape. All right, I can just drag this over because that's the way they want it to look like when you first start. All right, then click Finish Sketch. Okay, now we're going to do a couple of extrusions. So you can right click on the canvas and get this pop-up radial menu. Select Press Pull. Select this thing And the distance, let's make it 30. I don't think it matters. Okay, now here you want to select new component. Okay, new component, not new body, which is the default, but new component. And click OK. And it added, in the browser, it added this new component with its own origin, right, which happens to be the same as the global, where is it, the global origin. Okay, so you're going to have all these crazy multiple origins. By the way, the color's all freaky, and that's because I have this inspect component color cycling toggle. I have that turned on, so I'm going to turn that off. There you go. All right, some more extrusions. So it hid my sketch for me, so I'm going to go back in here and turn on the visibility of my sketch, and then right click, press pull. I want to do this and this, drag it up about so, and then new component, and then OK. And then one more, right click, press pull this thing. They want you to do two sides, drag this up, drag that down. Make sure you select new component, and then OK, and you get this. So you have 3 components. And now to make it more clear that there are 3 components, you can go to this inspect component color cycling toggle. There's that. Let me turn that back off. Or you can shell them, which is what they ask you to do. So go to modify, shell, click this face, this face, this face, and 2 millimeters, and you get that. And click OK. So now it's more clear that these are 3 separate things. And you can go to inspect component color cycling toggle and get this. So this automatically colors your components so that you can find them easier. And you can toggle that on and off with Shift N, Shift N, Shift N. All right, now we're going to add some joints. But before we do that, they want you to ground. Oh, actually, they want you to edit your sketch. Just a review of sketching and how parametric design works. So if you find your sketch in the timeline, or you could find it up in here and click Edit Sketch, right? Or you could find it down the timeline and Edit Sketch. And then if you drag this circle over there like that and then click Finish Sketch, it updates all your components. So that's the beauty and the utility of parametric design. Right now we're going to add joints. So one of these has to be grounded apparently. So component 1, there's component 1 in the browser. If I right click and click ground, now it's grounded. It has a little push pin in there. Okay, so I guess this becomes your reference object because it's grounded. Then we want to associate the other 2 components with this grounded component. That is, we want to add joints. Okay, so we go up here to assemble as built joint. Now be careful that you use the proper joint command here. We want as built joint. Start that. And we want, I think it's important to set the type first. So we want rigid. And then click this component and this component, and they shake. So you can play that animation again. So I guess that means these are connected together rigidly. That is, if they shake together. Okay, so that's a rigid joint, and then you can click OK. Then the next thing is a rotational joint. So go assemble, as built joint, change the type to Revolute, which is like a rotational joint, Revolute. Then for your components, pick this box and then this cylinder. And That was the components. These two components are selected. Then the position is the point about which they rotate. That's the position. So you want to select this circle will work. I guess either circle will work. So click this edge, the circular edge, and it does that kind of thing. And then you can play that again. Stop it, and then click OK. Now I think I picked the box first, and then the cylinder, so it turned the box about the cylinder, but this box is grounded. So if I go back to this joint and double click it, it gives me this little pop-up thing, and I can turn, you can't really tell, but the cylinder is turning now, which makes sense because the box is grounded, right? It's fixed. The box is fixed, and the cylinder turns around it. Okay, so that's the basics of components. We have 3 components, and we have all these joints which are added as entities in the browser, and they have a hierarchy, by the way. So there's all your joints. There's the rigid joint, okay, and then there's the revolution joint, which is tied to this rigid joint, and it's probably because this component here is grounded. That is, if I grounded the, I could try that here. I'm going to unground this. It won't let me. I got to escape, so let me unground this. And let me find component 2, which is this one. Let me ground that and see what happens. Yeah, it's not changing the hierarchy of this thing in here, which I would have expected, but let's just try and rotate this. So if I double click this joint, see, now that stuff turns because the cylinder is grounded, which makes sense because now I grounded the cylinder, but I would think this hierarchy would change as well, but it doesn't. Anyway, these hierarchies get really complicated, all right, and it's at some point it'd be good to spend some time, each of you, just studying this the hierarchy of the browser here, because if you're going to do a big project, you need to be comfortable with that. But anyway, we're just trying to do joints here. So that was the first activity. Okay, I'm going to go on and do the second activity now. So we're going to close this thing. I'm not going to save anything, and we're going to open up the data view thing and go to basic training, go to 6 assemblies and find the 06 tripod. Open that up. Close the data browser. All right, I have my fun with color thing turned on, which I can shift in. Oops, shift in, and it's not letting me. Let's go to component color cycling. There, it's working there. Now I can shift in. It's weird. Anyway, you do want that on. So look, I'll turn it off, and these things have colors, which are based on their materials, I think, which is a nice way to look at things. But another way to look at things is by component, and that's what component color cycling toggle does. So we know these are all separate components. Anyway, so we've got this huge old hierarchy of components in here, which is a little bit overwhelming, honestly, but let's try and not get too overwhelmed. So the first thing they want you to do is move some stuff. So just grab this and move it, grab that and move it, and grab that and move it. I think the point here being that in a large design, these may be designed separately. In fact, they could be designed by other people, but then you want to assemble them back together, all right? So that's the point of moving these, just so we can put them back with joints. All right, then we want to find this thing, that thing, stand one component, this center thing, that's like the heart of this assembly, right? So it makes sense to ground that. So we'll right click and ground that, and it turns purple. And okay, it's got a little push pin on the in the browser that says that it indicates that it's grounded. Now we're going to add a bunch of joints. So some things are just rigidly connected together, and other things move. So let's add a sliding joint here. Like this stuff should slide. So let's add that. So we'll go assemble as built joint. So I forgot to click this capture button up in here. So I need to do that. It's giving me the option to do that now. It just means, are you cool with moving these things that you moved? And I am. So I click capture. Okay, now change the type to rigid for the joint. Okay, then the components we want are, no, sorry, let's do a sliding joint. A slider. The components I want are this thing and this thing. Okay, then so I have, if you click the components selected button, it highlights what I've selected. And the position is how are these guys sliding relative to each other. So get in here and pick one of these edges here, one of these circles, like that one. And then it plays this animation, which is cool. And then you can come over here on the dialog and play that animation again if you want. And so that's what I want. So I just click OK. Now watch what happens when I go back to this joint and double click it so that I can play it. I get an arrow and I can slide it, and that kind of makes sense, but this foot should come with it. So I need a rigid joint there. So I'll escape out of that and we'll go up here, assemble as built joint, change the type to rigid. I want this thing and this thing, and it shakes them to show that they're rigid, and then I can click OK. Now if I go back to the sliding joint and double click it, I can, you see, and those things move together. All right, so let's connect some more parts together, some more rigid joints. So assemble as built joint. I want this thing to be connected to that thing, and they shake, and that's all cool. I click OK. Then I go back and add another joint, as built joint. I want this thing to also be connected to that thing. Maybe they're super glued together or something, welded, and click OK. Now let me check my slider again because it's so much fun. Yeah, everything's sliding around there. That's cool. All right, now I need a pivot here, right? So go up to assemble as built joint, Revolute, rotational joint. Click this thing and this thing. So those are the two items that have a joint between them. And then where is the pivot? Because we're doing a Revolute joint, you click select here for the position, and you get you zoom in here and you select this one of these circles. All right, click that and it plays this little animation. It's kind of cool. You can play it again. It's fun. Okay, accept that. Now I can test the joint by double clicking the joint, and I get this little doohickey. And notice that the leg comes with it. All the parts with rigid joints that we joined earlier, they come with it. All right, escape. What else? Okay, so that was those were let's see, it was assemble as built joints. Okay, now you have these other guys floating off in space, and for those, they want us to use a different kind of joint. I'm not sure exactly why. Might have something to do with group team projects or some other factors. But anyway, we want to do regular joint now. Okay, so start that. Now notice that the grounded item is ghosted. And I think because you can't move that. So you have no choice but, something to do with being grounded. Anyway, so the first thing we want is to put this bolt on there. So so the type is floating up here in space. It's okay. It's on this drop down is just disembodied, floating out here in space. Drop down. So we want to pick rigid. Okay, then component 1 is this thing. Now where you select is I canceled it. Where you select is important. Let me zoom in here a little bit better. Okay, so I want assemble, joint, change the type to rigid on this disembodied drop down here. Then for your first object, you want to select this surface. Now, where you pick these things matters. And I think for this, the only point of reference that it will use is the center. So just selecting this surface is good enough. Okay, for component 2, we want to put this nut on this bottom of this hub, let's call it. So you have to get in here and get underneath. Now where you click here is important. I think because the geometry is more complex, like it might want to join these up on the ends or something. So because of that, you have to hover over the edge of the circle. This one, not this one, because the bolt tightens up against this surface really, but you want the center of this surface. So you click that, and it, boom, it throws it on there and shakes it, and that's what we want. You click OK. You could check it by going to straight on front view and looking at it and just seeing that the joint is on the surface that you want. You see this joint symbol? That one, it's right on this, it's in the right spot. And then the other thing you could check is it centered. Oops. That one, is it centered? And it is. Okay, then the next thing is put this funny doohickey on there. And so go assemble, joint, change the type to rigid, then component 1, you want this surface, and it's just a circle, so I think you can just click the surface. You could also click this edge here. I think that would work. So I'll just click the surface. That thing bolts to bolts this thing here, which is highlighted, which is ghosted now, and it won't let me pick it. Oh, I think I forgot to hit the select button. Yeah, the first object I guess can't be the grounded object, so it was ghosted, but now I've selected my surface on my yellow doohickey, so now I can click the second selection button, and now I have the option of selecting in here now. And I want this surface. Now here, if I just click the surface, it can fail because it can connect it to one of these other points up here. So you want the center, so make sure you click this edge right here. And it, boom, moves it over there and shakes it. click OK. Go to the top view, make sure it's centered and it looks centered. Go to the front view, make sure it looks okay. It looks like this rigid joint that I just added is lined up vertically with this joint, and they're on the right surface, right? The bolt tightens up against this surface on here, and the yellow doohickey hub thing, ball joint socket or whatever, lines up on this surface. All right. Last thing is this guy. So assemble. You notice that we're using the joint commands for the joints where we have to move something, right? So half the tutorial uses this as-built joint and the other half uses regular joints. Okay, so start joint. The type is a ball joint. You click the ball and just anywhere on the ball, because there's the only thing that it could use is the center, so you click that. Then get in here until you see a ball, right? Get inside this ball socket and click the sphere you see, the ball you see. Click that and it throws it over there and it does a little wiggle, and that's cool. So you click OK, and we can test that. We can get in here and find that joint, and if you can't find it there, you can find it down in the timeline, and we can right click and then click find in window, and it'll help you find it. But there it is. Double click that. It has, notice that it has two rotation things around two axes. There's this one and there's this one. What's this one? Is that the same one? Yeah, there's just two. There's only two. Even though there's three axes in space, there's only two are sufficient. Two are sufficient to get to any point in space. And in fact, that's how they navigate in Star Trek, right? Even though they're traveling through three-dimensional space, which if you discount warp drive, which somehow bypasses three-dimensional space, but regular three-dimensional space, at any given time, they're in a point in the galaxy, and they use two coordinates to do that. They use the plane of the galaxy, so the center of our galaxy has an axis through the very center, and they use an angle around that axis, and then the plane of perpendicular to that, and I think it's the plane that goes through the center of the universe to Earth. I think the axis out that way, will create another plane that's perpendicular to the plane of the Milky Way, and they give you an angle on that. So when they give a navigation course, it's like 422.17 mark 422.99. So it's a number and then mark another number. It's two angles in those two planes that are perpendicular to each other. So this ball joint rotation mechanism is using the Star Trek two axes. Wait, am I full of it? Is there three on there? No, there's just two. There's just two grabbers for that same axis. Anywho, that's it. What else is there to say about this thing? That's about it. The browser is worth some time studying, but try not to get overwhelmed. Just concentrate on the idea of joints and grounding and the type of joints. All right, I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you. See you next time.